Hello and welcome to today's Q&A with me, Chloe. Today's question comes from Rick, who says, people like my stuff, but they're just not buying. Why is that? Now, a lot of us, when we're using social media marketing, we can tend to get a little bit more engagement, but trying to convert that engagement into sales can be really difficult. Now, a lot of the time, this is because we're not getting the right balance in our strategy, or maybe we don't even have a strategy in place to guide connections into paying customers. So here are just a few ideas that you can look at and ask yourself, am I implementing these? Am I not implementing these? And if you're not, maybe put some consideration into doing so. Now, the first one is the same as with everything in life. Consistency. Reps build muscle. Now, people underestimate how important consistency is, but we know that people do business with other people that they know, like, and trust. People trust consistency because it's a pattern, right? It's predictable. You know what's coming next, It is consistency in yourself, and it is consistency in the message that you're putting out there, and it's consistency in your action that you're putting out there. So your tweets, your posts, your messages. Now, when people are seeing that consistency, not only is it training them in creating this habit and removing risk, and because they know the pattern, they know what to expect. A huge reason people don't buy is because their fear of, they want their return on investment. Now, whether that is in a cleaning product and making sure the cleaning product works, or if you're making a big deal and you want a financial return on investment, they want something in return for their money. And so if you can eliminate that risk, then they're much more likely to go ahead and buy. Now, the other thing that consistency does is that when you're consistent in being present online and in your online strategy, it is saying that you're making a commitment, right? You're making a commitment to being consistent and to your audience. And if you commit to them, and if you put in an effort to build a relationship with them, it almost is like that law of reciprocity, right? They start to commit to you. They start to pay attention to what you're doing. And so that's a huge factor in it. You want to be consistent. Reps build muscle. Now, I understand as a small business owner that can be extremely tough. You're so busy working in your business that you don't have time to work on your business as well. But that's when you have to take a step back and think, okay, well, what can I be doing to help this? What do I need to invest in to help this? And as a small business owner, while you might not be able to afford your own social media marketing team, you might be able to do things like schedule posts through Hootsuite or Buffer, $10 a month. Now, I promise you that if you take time to invest in these tools, you will get an instant return, because you're able to block your calendar and block and do deep work and focus on putting in your tweets, putting in your posts, and then making sure they're scheduled out. Just be careful as to when you're posting. You want to make sure that you're posting and scheduling that content out at a time that you're also present to engage, because when somebody likes or follows or shares something or replies to you, that's when they're online. And so you want to be online during that time, because that's when you're going to be able to jump in, start a conversation, and we know that conversations lead to relationships, and relationships lead to results over time. So you have to be a little bit strategic with that, but consistency absolutely does pay off. Now, the other thing you have to do is be extremely confident and step up and be a leader. A lot of us, we tend to sit back and say, oh, look what they're doing. They look like they're doing a really good job. Look at all the thousands of followers and stuff that they've got. And that's that old saying, you can't compare, your starting ground to someone else's middle ground. You also should never ever play the comparison game, because people can do the same as you but not quite like you. And when you start focusing on what your competitors are doing, you stop focusing on your customers, which are your main priority. You don't concern yourself with what they're doing because you don't care. You care about your customers and delivering the best experience possible. And that means having confidence in what you're doing and the message you're trying to share and the products and service or whatever it is that you're delivering on, and stepping up to being a leader. You can't be a leader and a follower. And if you're following everybody else, or you're following even just one person, you're behind. You're never going to take control. And so you really have to dress up in your confidence and believe in yourself and believe in your message. It's amazing how your language changes when you do have confidence in yourself. And that's translated. You know, people pick up on that, and it comes back to that know, like, and trust factor, right? You want people to trust in you, then you have to trust in you. If you want people to buy into you, you have to buy into you first, right? And go all in on that. Now the third bit, and this is where we're looking a little bit more at the like tactical and strategic side, is to know your customers' triggers, right? People buy on emotion, they justify with logic, but we all have those emotional pain points, and this is where it's so important to know your audience on that, you know, geographical, demographical, and most importantly psychological and psychographic level. If you understand how your customer feels at a specific point in their customer journey, then you can speak to that. You know, it was a really interesting experiment or study done in Robert Cialdini's, might have said his name wrong, my bad, book Influence. And what they did is they looked at turkeys, and if you a mother turkey will respond to the chirping of her own. So when she hears the chirping, she will go and she will nurture and care for her own, look after them and feed her own. Now that same turkey, because we have the fight or flight mode built into us, when they see a polecat, she will respond by attacking that polecat. Now what's interesting about that is those are the triggers, right? You could dress up a puppet polecat and the hen or the turkey would go after it and it would attack it. Whereas if you were to put the little chirping noise, say you were to record that chirping noise and put it into that puppet polecat, the turkey would behave differently. The turkey would respond to the chirping and then start to nurture and look after that same polecat it would have attacked had it not had the chirping noise. The chirping was the trigger. Now we all have these automatic triggers. We all have them within us. So as you focus on your niche, and this is why it's so important to focus on a niche, you know, that group of people that think the same, feel the same, have the same attitudes, and have the same problem that you provide a solution to. If you can figure out what those triggers are, you can then tailor all of your messaging and everything you are doing around that to speak to that. And what happens is you can put the trigger in place and then you can respond to it in a positive way so that you are the solution. You help them identify, oh, I have a problem right now. That doesn't make me feel good. Oh, this person is here to solve that. Right? You want to do that. People don't just come to those feelings or emotions or realizations on their own, especially if you're a new business and you haven't built up your brand. You know, brands are seen, but it's not the logo, it's like what happens when you see that logo. It's the emotional trigger. So really focus on that. And then the next step is to have a process in place. You cannot expect people just to convert into sales. It does not work like that. You have to have a step-by-step guide. You know, you have to take the relationship to the next level. And again, that comes back to consistency and commitment, but you have to think, okay, well, what does the customer journey look like? What are the steps that they go through? The one I always talk about is, you know, the one that applies to most of us online businesses. You know, they start on social media, they get to know you, you maybe add them to a Twitter list so you can nurture that. You then maybe connect on LinkedIn and then Facebook when it gets more personal. You want to post your content out and hope that they get onto your blog, sign up to your newsletter, start engaging and responding to your newsletter, building that one-on-one relationship that you have been able to scale using email marketing, social media marketing, content marketing, etc. And then having the sales message out there. You want to guide them. Now that requires little micro commitments on their part. Now this comes back to the consistency thing. People will stay consistent to their own pattern and their own behavior. They don't like to go back on that. So if you can put little micro commitments in place that guide them, such as, you know, posting out your blog content, having conversations where you mention relevant blog content, not in a spammy way, but these little steps that guide them, making sure you're putting out a call to action that says, you know, come and sign up to my email list. We'll talk about call to actions a little more in a second. Then those little micro commitments, they're saying yes, 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 yes. So when you ask for the sale, to stay consistent with their pattern of behavior, they're going to be more likely to say yes. So that's another thing. You have to take control of that relationship and guide people to that place. It doesn't just happen on their own. And you have to consider things like the law of reciprocity. So when you want someone to sign up for your newsletter, you do have to be given value. When you want someone to read your blog, you do have to be given value. And I don't mean 6 tips that make this tool even better to use. Think about those emotional triggers and speak to them. Offer real solutions to real problems, and don't be afraid to go deep, because people will still buy into it. People don't get all the knowledge from one reading of a blog post or one email. You have to be constantly building on that core message that you're trying to put out there. And my last tip that I would say is be really strategic with your call to actions. The reason that I am very, very reluctant to share a lot of other people's content if it has a link in it is because you're telling your audience, go and click on this link. That is asking them to do something. If they are natively in Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, they're hanging out there because that's where they want to be. If you ask them to go and stop whatever they're doing to go and check something out, that's a call to action. That's a big deal. You're asking something. So if you're going to put call to actions out there, you want to make them count. This is how you can avoid being salesy and spammy, is just be really strategic in the call to actions you put out. AKA, make sure that you're selfish with them. Make sure that it's pointing to your content because you want to guide them to that next step that we spoke about in that process. So be strategic with them, and also be consistent in the call to action you put out. Try to put out one. A lot of the time we're trying to say, come and follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook, sign up to my newsletter, buy my stuff. It's just too much. It comes across as really spammy. However, if you know the process and you know the next step is come to my blog, then you can be really consistent and only have those call to actions going out on social media. That way, your audience knows exactly what the next step is. They know exactly what you want them to do. And when you are asking them to take an action, it's because you have delivered more value to them. So by the end of it, not only are they on your website where you want them to be, right? Because that stuff is all you, unlike social media where they can be distracted by 101 things. But it also is saying, you know, you've taken them to the next level, you've provided value, and you've made it count. And you haven't been salesy or spammy because you've avoided it, but you've still managed to promote your stuff. This is the difference, is taking control of that relationship. And then of course, when they're on your blog, your main call to action would be you'd have your sales pages, but you might want them to get on your email list. So at the end of each blog post, you might have, you know, you give away an extra PDF in exchange for their email address, or you just say sign up to my email address at the end of each one. But if you can add some value, again, it's making that micro commitment, it's building that trust, it's showing rather than telling what you're good at. And that again, it removes the risk, and it brings them to that point where they reach that zero moment of truth where they decide, am I going to buy or am I not going to buy? So these are all the things you have to consider. Social media marketing is not easy. Getting results from social media is not enough to just be there and hope that people buy your stuff. You have to think about it. You have to put your customer at the focus, and you have to think about the individual steps that are going to guide them from somebody you don't know into a connection into a paying customer. So if people are liking your stuff and maybe engaging, it's probably because they think you're a cool person. But you have to take that to the next level. If you want them to buy, you have to give them something that's worth buying. You have to make them want that. The other thing I didn't mention with the call to actions is scarcity, right? So you want to add some scarcity in there and let them know that they can't just buy this anytime. If they want to get the best deal, they have to buy it now. Right? And you have to be consistent again in that. A lot of people are putting out sales all the time. It doesn't work. If they have a sense of urgency and they know that, you know, a product's limited, say you create paintings like Rick does, then if that's a one-of-a-kind painting, make sure that that is known. Tell the story behind it. You know, guide them to that next step. So I hope that has aided your queue if you were wondering. And if you have any more questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll meet you there. I'd love to know if you have any follow-up questions, or if you have your own methods for influencing and getting more sales when there's crickets. We don't like crickets. Never forget that you have the power to change the world one connection and one conversation at a time. Much love from my heart to yours. I hope you have a beautiful day wherever you are in the world.